Hello, and thank you for watching this Northeast Regional Forecast. I'm Andrew Pritchard, meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, checking in with the jet stream once again on this Tuesday morning, we continue to watch rather a kinked and bunched up flow across the Pacific Ocean, leading into a ridge across the Gulf of Alaska. The flow then comes screaming out of the Canadian prairie into the Midwest and then eventually into the Northeast. And that, of course, bringing a lot of cold air from the north, displacing that into the Midwest and then eventually parts of the Northeast region, leading to a very cold next 10 days. As we check in with our temperature anomaly forecast for not just the next 5, but the next 10 days, watching for a large area of very cold temperatures to spill into really the eastern two-thirds of the country. The core of that going to be located across parts of the Canadian prairie into the northern plains and eventually the Midwest here, where parts of this area will be 20 degrees cooler than average in that November 11th through 15th time frame. Now, as we talk about precipitation, it's a colder pattern, it's a drier pattern, one that's not supportive of significant precipitation from the northern plains to the Great Lakes and really into the Northeast region. The only area really expecting any significant precipitation over the next 7 to 10 days is going to be across parts of the southern U.S. into the Mid-South. This region here, and we'll take a look at an animation here in a minute that'll make that more clear, the reasoning for that, again, as we kind of watch storm systems or subtle disturbances in the upper level flow coming from the northwest, really bringing in drier air to this region as well. Meanwhile, moisture tries to come north from the Gulf of Mexico, but it's kind of cut off by the flow here and suppressed off to the south, and that, again, why we expect the more significant precipitation to be kind of squished off to the south there from the southern U.S. into the mid-south and not quite making it into either the Midwest or the Northeast region over the next 10 days. The last 72 hours of precipitation are rather reflective of this pattern, keeping light precipitation through this corridor here as subtle little disturbances make their way across the northern plains into the Great Lakes and the Northeast region, really starved for moisture as they make their way through the area. Looking at snow cover across the U.S., then, we do have our mountain snowpack beginning to accumulate, but once again, just kind of focusing on this corridor here where we're watching these subtle little systems make their way through, moisture starved, bringing some with them from the Pacific, and in that cold air enough to produce some light snow flurries as they make their way through. So this will be the corridor that we'll watch from the northern plains through the Great Lakes into parts of, western portions of the Northeast region for doses of snow here several inches at a time, not talking about any crippling snowstorms, but opportunities every few days for at least a trace to a few inches in that region. As we take a look at the satellite picture, then waking up on Tuesday morning, we're watching this frontal boundary kind of make its way through the eastern Corn Belt, some light rain showers falling in that area, and some light snow flurries beginning to fall in parts of the northern plains, the northern high plains from that system that we can expect to drop a little accumulating snow through this region over the next 24 to 48 hours. As we look at the radar picture then underneath those clouds, again here we see that area of rain showers making its way through the eastern Corn Belt and some of the very light snow flurries that are currently tracking through the northern plains. Some of those light rain showers even extending into portions of the Northeast region as we wake up on this Tuesday morning. We'll take a look at what we can expect here in just a moment, but first checking in with our temperatures here at 5 o'clock this morning on Tuesday morning, watching an area of very cold temperatures parked across the northern plains and the upper Midwest, morning temperatures there in the single digits to the teens. Elsewhere, as we look across the Northeast region, though, keeping it pretty mild in the 40s and the 50s as that area of cold air begins to make its way into the region. So we'll take a zoom in check here with the high-resolution NAM model timing out the precipitation over the next 2.5 days from these first two systems. First, watching some light rain moving across the area here Tuesday morning. This will get out of the area as we head through the day today, leading to a mostly dry Wednesday, perhaps some light snow flurries across the north early on Wednesday morning, but a dry, pleasant Wednesday before the next system begins to make its way in, bringing some light snow to northern and western portions of the Northeast region here starting on Thursday morning, but then the bulk of the moisture makes its way into the region here as we head into Thursday and Friday, bringing rain to a majority of the Northeast region here, but some snow and some accumulating snow going to be found across western portions of, northwest Pennsylvania into western and northern New York into New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, especially in some of the higher elevation areas here. So as we time out or take a look at the total accumulated precipitation here, just getting us through noon on Thursday. And so again, the majority of the moisture from this second wave still making its way in here as we get into this forecast period, but here seeing some of the early snow beginning to stack up across far western portions of the area. Same thing here when we just take a look at the snow accumulation forecast, again watching this system kind of sweep through this region here, dropping a corridor of some at least light accumulating snow from parts of Minnesota, Iowa through Wisconsin, Michigan, and then ultimately into western New York, northern New York, and New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. Now this really illustrates the pattern here. I'm going to draw a bunch of drawings on the map here, but over the last couple of weeks and just in general, when we're talking about these more significant precipitation events from the southern U.S. into the eastern Corn Belt and eventually the Northeast region across this area, we're typically talking about drawing a lot of moisture northward from the Gulf of Mexico, unimpeded into the central part of the country, tapping into those storm systems. Instead, what we have now, with the pattern being reversed, seeing this cold air coming out of the Canadian prairie, this cold, dry air, instead of seeing moisture feeding north from the Gulf of Mexico, we're seeing these reinforcing pushes of drier, colder air coming into the region, that cold, dry air mass. So instead, when moisture is trying or attempting to be drawn northward from the Gulf of Mexico, it's kind of head off by these frontal boundaries, by these surges of cool, dry air, and it's kept parked across this region. So that's why the southern U.S. into the mid-south, this is where we expect to see the more significant precipitation events over the next week or so. Through this corridor, it's going to be the Clipper-like systems bringing some moisture up and over the top of the Rockies from the Pacific, bringing that light chance for some snow, some light precipitation to this corridor here. So honestly, I'm going to leave the drawings on here for just a moment as this plays, and you can watch this pattern. Here's a surge of dry air there from the north. Here comes another surge, and you're seeing the moisture really being trapped down in this area across the Gulf of Mexico. Let's go ahead and play it one more time, and I'll take the drawings off as we do that. Just one by one. Again, watching, we're not bringing, deep moisture northward from the Gulf of Mexico. We're bringing just a little bit of Pacific moisture, maybe tapping into just a little bit of moisture from the Gulf, but really an air mass that, again, is not conducive to major crippling precipitation events. It's going to be supportive of some very cold air moving into parts of the Northeast region and elsewhere across the entire eastern two-thirds of the country. Taking a longer look then with the GFS precipitation type forecast, going quickly through the next 24 to 36 hours, really getting us into, this would be Wednesday night now, getting into Thursday morning, watching this more substantial storm track through. By substantial, we mean talking about, perhaps accumulating several inches of snow in the western and northern portions of the Northeast region before it gets out of here on Friday. High pressure on the backside going to lead to a mostly quiet start to the weekend, maybe some light snow and light rain moving back into the Northeast region with our next system that comes sweeping into the area by the time we get to Sunday and Monday. So total snow forecast, just kind of playing this out. We're going to see the corridor here. Don't focus too much on the exact amounts, but we'll take it out through the next week. Again, noting the corridor here as these systems kind of slide through from the Canadian prairie through the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and eventually the Northeast region, perhaps stacking up some snow. Higher chances as you head toward the west, talking about northwestern Pennsylvania through western and northern New York into northern portions of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. That's what we could be talking about over the next week, perhaps picking up anywhere from 4 to 12 inches of snow, highest in the higher elevation areas, highest as you head off towards the west. Taking a look then at the probability of picking up 3 inches or more of snow, we'll take this out through the next week as well, stopping here on Tuesday night of next week, so all the way through November 12th. Again, we're looking at the probability of picking up 3 inches or more, and you can really pick up the pattern here. The further to the west that you head inland from the Atlantic here, the higher your chance of getting some snow is going to be, with those higher chances, better than 75%, those red colors across western Pennsylvania, northern Pennsylvania into, the northwestern half of New York State, into New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. Elsewhere, as you head across the remainder of the Northeast region, certainly opportunities for some snowflakes to be flying with these systems here, especially here on Thursday and Friday, and then again on Sunday and Monday. But the chances for any accumulating snow are going to be drastically lower as you head east toward the Atlantic. Finishing then looking at your high temperatures over the next few days, talking about your highs on the day on Tuesday, today, 40s and 50s for everyone across the Northeast region, maybe toward the 60s as you head into Virginia and Delaware. Taking a look at a very similar look for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, starting to see some colder temperatures move in. This is now when we could see high temperatures not getting above freezing across parts of Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. This is where we could be seeing several inches of accumulating snow at this point as well. And then Saturday warming up into the lower 40s across the south, with temperatures only topping out in the upper 20s across the north. Your low temperatures then for the next several days, starting with Wednesday morning, waking up tomorrow with temperatures below freezing for a lot of us, in the middle to upper 30s though as you head closer to the Atlantic Ocean. Temperatures once again dropping below freezing for much of the Northeast region Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And then by the time we get to Friday morning, waking up with much of the Northeast region in the 20s, the entire Northeast region falling below freezing, and then colder still as we wake up on Saturday morning with temperatures in the teens across the north. As always, Eric Snodgrass will have our long-range U.S.-focused weather analysis posted Wednesday. That would be tomorrow. And we'll be back to talk about the Northeast region specifically on Friday morning. Have a wonderful day.